So, I wrote the laws of free will. Wait, no. I discovered the laws of free will, and then I wrote them down. What is it about me that I can conceptualize both issues, but my brain wants to choose either one? And my brain is conceptualizing and capable of saying both statements. Obviously, I didn't write the laws of free will, I designed them in a paradox. Or did I discover the paradox? I discovered the paradox, and then I attempted to live within the paradoxes so that I do not right, define them, own them. It is a very complicated form of philosophy, and the only thing I think that has rooted my pursuit of this probably is the idea of prove that there's a chair. So that philosophical question that every student philosophy class goes through is so inherent in its own right, but it never has a definition, right? It's just this question. And so your mind then, as a philosopher, is left to never answer this question. And you're just basically left to wonder, right? So you can look at self-indulgence, self-righteousness, and hypocrisy. However, why is my brain able to say, I wrote the laws of philosophy? Well, I discovered the laws of philosophy. What is it about those two statements that there is some sort of self-righteousness, but what's the other one? No, I discovered them. Am I indulging in myself? Am I representing hypocrisy? I never really derived it that far. I mean, I've derived it extensively. It's just derived it, dissected it extensively. And alright. Look how big my lips can get when I do that. Or I can make them really small. It looks funny to me. Anyway, so this is a little bit of philosophy. My food. Anyway, why are you making sounds like that? Oh, I know. Anyway, we're making a video about how to conceptualize and further this overly vague concept of prove there's a chair. So what they do is they create a question that is so vague that anyone can approach it before they try to guide the philosophy, right? And as philosophers develop, they become more and more vague like that until you approach answers, and philosophy sort of sits just in this fickle presence that It is everything and nothing. That's how I define philosophy. I don't know if I've ever made a video about that. So my definition that I derived from philosophy, for, from and for philosophy, is I always like the philosophium or philosophia, whichever one it is. Everything and nothing. But fills my drink. Cheap whiskey. I really need to clean. I go through periods like this. So it's just my cycle. I kept this second place almost spotless for a year. And yeah. So paradox philosophy is just that. I'm trying to incite that emotion that I get in my brain from it when it becomes pleasurable. I think to the average person it makes them a little, I want to say idiosyncratic, but I don't think that's the right word. It's more of a rage. The brain makes choices. They have to be hemispherical. While people like me, we sit in between them. And I don't know if I have something wrong with my brain. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't. I think if we evolved to have two hemispheres, that your cerebral cortex should be able to precognitively assess, and you have to recognize somehow that vague discrepancy. And this is kind of what martial arts teaches us, and how to shut off our minds, and Buddhism teaches you to meditate, and that's all been corrupted. But I'm purely talking about philosophy, so my own opinions on what Buddhism actually is, and what Buddha actually was. What was his name? Siddhartha or something? And then other various forms of philosophy that become manifested into a title structure, and how people want to create religious forms from it. And by my definitions of religion, it's from moral fiber. So it's a way that we create a community of moral structure. And there's no real, well, because I go by the older definitions. Cult, the cult is believing in any deity. So any form of civil manner that is delineated from the beliefs in a deity is the older definition for what a cult is. And then we changed various cults into religious structures based on majority votes. So that's another flaw of democracy. It does not matter. We are talking about a chair. This is why I drink a lot. That's not even strong. I don't know, it's really weird. Wobble wobble. Wibble wibble wobble. Anyway. I don't know what else to say. My brain just goes off on these tangents and I lose track. It's healthy if you have somebody to help get you back to that original thought. I designed a series of recollective processes that I used to use, and after a series of moving, I forgot how to really utilize it properly, so I could remember my original train of thought. And it's just basically just storing ideas from tangents so that you can use recollection to get back to where you came from. And that helps with, I kind of learned that from, I think I would look at things. So I would look at something and then focus on an idea, and then I would look at something else and focus on an idea, and then let them, spiderweb outwardly. And I would look back at that other object to use recollective processing, which is something I learned from CU Boulder when my girlfriend would sneak me into classes with her. It wasn't actually sneaking, but it was just more romantic that way. And well, prove that there's a chair. I mean, so as a so as a physicist, you can see, depending on your scientific, I want to say conceptions, how you understand science and how you understand physics are really interesting in that you have, say, chemistry, and you have atomic and quantum, and then you have astrophysics, and then you have, I don't think there's like a galactic physics yet. We'll probably get there. I mean, there's multiverse theory, so eventually we're going to get to that point where we build it up so high that we can prove this sort of ferro black matter gaseous state of a supercritical fluid structure, which is like an aerogel, except all the little pores are galaxies, and that's the universe in general. And we'll get there, I'm sure. There's going to be a huge field of that. All it takes is what's bigger, what's smaller. It's the separate questions. But so prove that there's a chair. Looking at all of these perspectives, you can't. I mean, prove that there's a chair. Well, I can prove, say there's a galaxy, say there's a reality, say there's a universe. I can assume that there must exist a chair. Do I understand how to use the chair? Well, that always goes back to that funny other question about if a tree falls in a forest. Well, I mean, the tree still falls, but we translate data and information as sound waves, and our brains make sounds. So the tree fell. Do you hear it? Well, you have to have ears to hear it. Doesn't mean that it fell or not. And looking at separate axes, since there's no up or down, I'm just correlating it to center of mass. I don't want to talk about all that, but you can assume that, say, yes, there must be, right? What was the other guy? There was another guy that's talked similarly about this, that since we have an infinite universe, it's safer to assume that, yes, there can be something that exists rather than nothing. Maybe that was me. Was that me? No, there's another guy, but I don't know him. But I'm talking also about the law of philosophy. That I did discover. For something to exist, there must first be nothing for it to exist, in which is a compounding paradox that is infinitely compounding. I want to drink this. You gonna violate my probation again? Whatever her name was. Yeah, I really hope my future did not. I don't know. I don't know if it mattered. Who knows? It is always fun telling somebody upholding the law to fuck off, essentially. And where would we be without that ability? But so reduction. Alright, so now we have, let's say, what did I call it? Galactic measurements or something. A way to use a galactic mass to measure distance. So we have a variable of energy that is dissolved into a certain volume, and we can call that a galactic mass rather than, say, speed of light. So speed of light is interesting because it curves and it can slow down and it can speed up, while a galactic mass is, I guess, a black hole. But maybe that's what Hawking was going for. That would make a lot of sense. That'd be really good. I don't know. I'll never know. I'm never going to talk to him. What is going on with my eye? It looked like there's a lump there. Well, I got a lump in my bone. You never know if a lump's gonna appear in other bones. It's a pretty weird lump. Anyway, so back to galactic masses. So you shrink down further at our scale, prove that there is a chair. So what is the problem between our eyes and our reality, and how our brain translates information to perceive a reality? And I know how to use a chair, so I assume it's a chair. And well, what if I just wanted to make firewood? I could look at it and say, hey, that's firewood, that's not a chair. Basic, right? Basic fun. What you get into when you get into chemistry? Prove that there is a chair. Well, you see firewood. How do you chemically see firewood? How do you know that that's a chair? You have oxygen, you have all these molecules that exist that don't actually touch one another, that it only takes our eyeballs to eventually perceive a chair. So when you shrink further, you get into atoms. What if you could only see the atoms? How long would it take you to scan every single atom and formulate a structure and then call it a chair? That's the physicist. And then you get into quantum mechanics. That's where it gets funny. Especially with quantum superposition or entanglement. And how as molecules can sort of create an entropic fundamental quantum probability. Now, I never finished quantum probability. I don't want to be an idiot about it, you know. I don't want to like think that I figured it out, and it's like telling people that there is no number 10. They really think you're crazy. So if you're gonna tell people about quantum probability, it gets really silly. And you're trying to explain how wave functions, and like you when you get into this, you can see all of the theories together. It's really strange. And yet you understand that there's a chair, but no chair could ever possibly exist. And it's not Schrodinger's cat, because there would never be a box, let alone a poison, let alone a cat. How the hell could a cat exist in a box? So this poison is just some wave function, an energy structure that manipulates through an entropic fundamental, and then you have time as a dissonance, and then you have, well, the idea of quantum superposition, and in that, like, photons annihilate themselves, though through annihilation you can create more electrons and positrons. So you have all these paradoxes in physics that make it really fun to think about how small things can really get. When you get like how big things can get, it's not a lot of fun. If we were 100 times bigger, we could have free energy. If we were 100 times smaller, we could have free energy. Right at our scale, free energy is so complicated. It's because just stop. My phone, I hate when it does it. Yeah, I should quit rambling. It always goes into free energy. That's just a enchanting idea. It's like going to the ballet, you know? You want to believe and love in ballet, but it's kind of more boring than you ever thought it'd be. There's only one good ballet, and it was made by Tchaikovsky, so what do? I don't know, you just think, bro. That's what you do, guys. And 20 minutes. No, I think we're good. That's enough to say. If anybody understands it, they've already probably been there. Then I'm guiding it, and you're like trying to disrupt it, and then you're just finding like either like-minded people, or you're finding people that, where's the button?